What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. FantasyTeamAdvisors.com, bringing home the bacon NFL DFS video for Week 9. We're going to talk our top 5 stacks for the week right now. So, stacking, a lot of people like to stack. Whether or not you stack your quarterback with 1 or 2 or even 3 people, we've got it for you. So what we're going to do is we're going to cover our top 5 stacks. We're going to look at the quarterbacks that we like. We're going to dig into the numbers just a little bit. We are going to then use our matchup tool. So if you've never seen our matchup tool, it is right here. It's completely free on the website. It's broken down. It's under the NFL tab right here. And then it's the bacon station. So we look at the bacon station and we see, and you can filter it however you want, whether or not you play on DraftKings or Fanduel, you can check that out, or even PPR. So if like season long, if you're using it, you would use obviously the DraftKings points because that they use the PPR compared to FanDuel. But we'll go through the list, we'll look at those, we'll look at the rankings, and we'll look at the fantasy points given up to that position. So we will then kind of look at a couple of plays we like in that same game. So when you stack, if you find a game that has a high over-under, then you most likely normally want to look at stacking and a bring back. So we'll talk about that. I don't want to get into it now, but we'll talk about it once we get into the breakdown. So if you haven't checked out our other content, make sure you go to FantasyTeamAdvisors.com and check that out. NFL content for a week. You can get a weekly pass for $10. You can get a monthly pass for $30, or a yearly pass right now. Instead of $200 for a yearly pass, if you use the promo code NBAIsBack, you will get it for $74.99. All you got to do is go to the website, go to FTA Plus there. So that being said, make sure you guys are following us on all social media. You can find that down below. And our Discord. Get in that Discord. It is working. We give out core plays. We give out bets. We give out everything. So our sponsor for this video, which we will use as well, is always Outlier.Bet. So make sure you check out Outlier.Bet right now. A link to sign up. You can check out sports betting. You can check out game breakdown. You can check out the insights. So if you look at the game breakdowns, you can check everything out while we're building around it. So that is what we're going to do. We're going to jump in. We're going to start with our number 5 stack right now. It is Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals. So let's take a look at Joe Burrow going up against Las Vegas, and we will break it down. So we've got Joe Burrow. He gets the 18th. So Vegas ranks 18th against the quarterback position. And if you look at our matchup tool, I'm going to bring it over here so I can look at it. But if you check it out, they are currently ranked 18th, and they give up an average of 17.4 fantasy points per game in that matchup. So if you look at his game logs, it's been a couple of games where he has not been his best, but he went against Philly and he went against Cleveland. So if we look at that, Philly against the quarterback, they rank 6th. Cleveland against the quarterback, they rank 11th. So when he has a good matchup, he could be in store for a good game. So he has 15 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. So this, obviously he's number 5 for the week. I like that. He had a huge game against Baltimore, pretty good game against the Giants, and then 2 tough matchups there where he did not do well against the opposing defenses. But I think it changes this week in week 9. So if we look at the game here, we see that since he's a 7-point favorite and it's a 46.5 over-under. So if we look at the over-unders, it's right about the middle. The top one is 52 over-under. So it's right there. We still got a great matchup there. So I love Joe Burrow in this situation. Now, if you're taking him with a running back, it's probably going to be Chase Brown for me over Zach Moss. They're both similar priced. They've got the same matchup there. Brown is going up $300 more, but he is averaging almost a full point more than Moss. But in my theory, I am looking at our wide receivers. Now, T. Higgins, if he is out, I love Jamar Chase even more. He did not practice on Thursday. I fully expect him to miss this game yet again. I'm going to bump up to Jamar Chase. He is just dominating this year so far. 674 yards, 7 touchdowns. He has had a touchdown in 2 straight games. I am looking for that exact same thing here in this matchup. Now, while Las Vegas in the secondary are ranked 8th against the wide receiver, they're still going up 28.4 fantasy points per game to the receiving core. So Jamar Chase is number 1. Yoshevich he's there. Probably not looking at him. He has not done anything. It has been the Jamar Chase, and basically last week was Mike Gesicki. So that's kind of where I'm at. So I am stacking Joe Burrow. So what I'm looking at is Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and Gesicki. If we look at Gesicki, Raiders rank 17th against the opposing tight end, giving up an average of 11.4 fantasy points per game. And if you look at his game logs, last week, 73 yards, did have a fumble for a loss, but had 8 targets. That is what I would look at if T. Higgins is out again. I would look probably about 6 to 8 targets. Hopefully he can reel in a touchdown or 2 in this one, and that's where I'd go. So if you're doing a QB plus 2, but if you just want to do 2, Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase make a lot of sense. So if you're building Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow there, and if you wanted to look at a bring back, meaning what player from Las Vegas would you look at, it's probably, and again, Vegas is not the best, but Jacoby Myers, if he's in there, was limited in practice on Wednesday. If he's in, he would be the bring back that I would use. And not necessarily need to do the bring back, but that's kind of what I would look at. If you wanted to go a full game stack, you could, but this game doesn't have the highest over-under, so I'm not really going to go with a full game stack there. So our number 5 stack, Joe Burrow along with Jamar Chase. Number 4, we are looking at this game right here, Jaden Daniels and the Washington Commanders versus the very bad New York Giants at New York, where they are very bad as well. So we're looking at Jaden Daniels. He's got the questionable tag. He had it last week, played through it. In that game, put up 25 fantasy points. As long as he stayed healthy, he did not. Obviously got hurt against Carolina early. But against Chicago, came through 25.24. We know his arm is not a problem. That Hail Mary was an amazing pass for a touchdown. That was the only touchdown from him for the day. But it was a huge one for 25.24. Still had 326 yards in the air. Now he gets to go up against the Giants. The Giants rank 22nd, giving up 18 fantasy points per game against the opposing quarterback. If his ribs are healthy enough, I don't know if he'll scramble enough, but he still put up 52 yards last week. So I don't think the ribs are going to be a problem. They probably protected. He is good to go. So we're looking at Jaden Daniels as our number 4. Obviously, Terry McLaurin makes a lot of sense. Noah Brown, obviously the one that caught the touchdown in the end zone. Outside of that, I mean, only 2 other receptions besides that, 73 yards. So only had 20 yards prior to that, give or take 20 yards. So I would still take McLaurin. I would take Jaden Daniels. You could look at, this is the other thing. Brian Robinson Jr. was limited participant in Wednesday due to a hamstring injury. He dealt with knee, then had a hammy. If he is out, on DraftKings, I love Austin Eckler in this situation at 5,300. I think this, if Robinson is out, I am looking at these 3 as my fourth stack overall this year, or today. So Daniels, Eckler, and McLaurin. Now for the Giants, for a bringback, it's obviously going to be Malik Neighbors, who last week kind of quiet throughout the whole day. Didn't have a touchdown, but kind of quiet there. And then running back. Obviously, Singletary is the number 1. Tracy Jr. has been there. Kind of want to save some money. If we were going to go that way, we would go with this as a bring-back stack here and then fill out your defense, your other wide receiver, tight end, and a flex. So our 4th stack for Week 9, Jaden Daniels, Terry McLaurin, and Austin Eckler if Robinson is limited or out for this week. Our number 3 stack, we have Mr. Josh Allen. There is some weather concern right now, so obviously filming this on Thursday, anything can happen and change, but let's take a look. So, quarterback, Josh Allen. Now, I will tell you, the Miami Dolphins are the number 1 defense so far through 8 weeks against the opposing quarterback. They're only giving up an average of 11.5 fantasy points per game. Now, Josh Allen has had a couple of games where he started off very, very slow, and then he's picked it up. Coming off 3 straight 20-plus fantasy point outings there. The completions have actually been a little bit lower than what I'm expecting, but 2 touchdowns in the last 3 games, only 1 interception on the year, which came last week against Seattle. He has 1,766 yards, 14 touchdowns to 1 interception there. Now, the only thing that could take it away from him would be James Cook, who last week did have a pretty good game, 31.3, had 111 yards with 2 touchdowns, and then 3 receptions for 22 yards as well. I am still taking Josh Allen and James Cook, but the pass catcher that I'm looking at. Now, Cooper, limited participant last week, really didn't do much, did something the first week with them. I'm thinking it's still going to be Khalil Shakir. I'm looking at Shakir here, 421 yards, 2 touchdowns, 10 targets last week, 9 receptions for over 100 yards. No touchdown there, but still put up 22.9 at 5,900. And now he is going up against a Miami defense that is number 3. So they're pretty good against the wide receiver too, but they're still going up 26.1 fantasy points per game. And then James Cook does have a great matchup. Miami's 21 against the opposing running back, gives up an average of 24.7 fantasy points per game on DraftKings. The only thing that would scare me with James Cook here would be if Ray Davis takes anything away from him, or even Ty Johnson's probably not going to. Yeah, Ty Johnson will. The only thing will be Ray Davis if he does anything here. So I love this stack here, but we got to get the get back, because if you look at this, the Buffalo Bills against the opposing quarterback, if it'll load, well, where are they? The Buffalo Bills against the opposing quarterback, they rank 7th, giving up 15.4, so it is Tua. But if the running back situation, Buffalo against the running back, they are second worst. They're 31st out of 32. They give up an average of 29. So if you were thinking the game might stay close and they got to run, a Chan makes a lot of sense. Had a 97 yards last week on 10 attempts, had 50 yards through the air and a receiving touchdown. You've got Mostert. Same kind of thing. 19 yards on the ground. Did have a target reception last week. Had 2 touchdowns on the ground. So they can kill you with Tua's legs as long as he doesn't die. You've got the 2-headed running back situation there. Maybe even, it's technically 3 with Jalen Wright, but the 2-headed with the Chan. Then they got the 2-headed wide receiver. Now, if you look at this, the Buffalo Bills against the wide receiver, they're pretty good. They're 7th out of 32, giving up an average of 27.9 fantasy points per game against the wide receiver. Tyreek Hill didn't do a ton last week, 72 yards, no touchdown. He has not scored a touchdown since week 1. He has 1 touchdown. And let me tell you, from the guy who drafted him at first round pick for me, I think 3rd overall pick, 4th, I can't remember now. I had 2nd pick. I took him 2nd. I'm not happy about it. I am not happy about it. He has not done anything here since week 1, basically. That's why my team stinks. You got Jalen Waddle, who also could take out some frustration for you, but he has not scored 1 touchdown this year. You got OBJ, who's taken looks away from them. Not targeted last week. Doesn't have any stats in 3 weeks that he's played. It really will depend if you have a bring back. If you have a bring back, I think it is. I mean, you would save a ton of money with Waddle. Tyreek Hill's probably the number 1, though, if you do that bring back there. Then we're at 4,300 the rest of the way to build your lineup. So our 3rd stack for the week, Josh Allen, James Cook, Khalil Shakir, and then maybe a possible bring back. I think I kind of like a Chan and Mostert. You might even be able to do both of them. I don't know how feasible that would be, but you might be able to do both of them instead of a wide receiver if the rain is a continuance throughout the day in this game. So our number 2 stack for week 9. Looking for them. Where are they? It is Lamar Jackson versus the Denver Broncos. Now, I will say, the Denver Broncos are pretty damn good against the opposing running back. So if you look at the matchup, they're ranked 4th for passing yards allowed per game, 7th against rush, and 3 against the points allowed per game. Now, Lamar Jackson is obviously almost matchup proof. He's a dominant force. I still like Lamar Jackson here for our 2nd overall stack in that situation. Denver's defense is no joke, though. If you look at the running backs, Denver's defense against the running back, they are ranked 11th, giving up only an average of 21.6. So if you look at that situation, I could definitely see I'm probably fading the running back situation here and only going with the wide receivers. So in that situation, we've got Zay Flowers, we've got Bateman, but they have added Deontay Johnson into the mix this week with a trade. Now, Deontay Johnson is cheaper. Not the best matchup for him, but if I were to stack, it's Lamar Jackson. I think a lot of people are going to go with Flowers. I kind of like Deontay Johnson here. Now, if you look at the situation, they rank 4th overall against the opposing wide receivers, only giving up an average of 26.5, and there's just so many different mouths to feed. I think people are going to be on Flowers. I'm going to go either Deontay Johnson or Rashad Bateman if I am stacking Lamar Jackson this week. So that is what I'm looking at. And then the bring back. What are we looking at bring back wise? Denver. So Denver gets a matchup against Baltimore. Baltimore ranks 7th against, let's go wide receiver. Baltimore ranks 31st, second to last against the opposing wide receiver. Cortland Sutton would be that number one, 5,400, a cheap option, coming off a 100-yard game last week. He's got 2 touchdowns on the year. He's actually got a great matchup. So Bo Nix would be a complimentary stack here with Cortland Sutton if you are want to get a little bit sneaky. So Lamar Jackson, Deontay Johnson as a 1-2 stack. I am looking at Cortland Sutton to come back and give a matchup for you for 5,400. I don't mind that at all. You could look at the tight end like Troutman, but I mean, outside of last week, he did have a touchdown. He only has a total of 117 yards, so don't get sucked into that. Oh, he did well last week. This would be my second stack. So Lamar Jackson, either Zay Flowers, Deontay Johnson, or Rashad Bateman is who I would stack with. You could even go as far as to look at tight ends, Baltimore. So we've got Mark Andrews, who has back-to-back weeks. No, he has 3 weeks in a row with a touchdown. 1 week, 1 touchdown and 36 yards last week against Cleveland. 2 touchdowns against Tampa Bay and 1 touchdown against Washington. If we look at the Denver Broncos against the tight ends this year, they rank 6th, giving up 8.9 fantasy points per game. Mark Andrews has sucked so bad this year, his price is 4,200. I not having looked back, but I would say he was always at least top 3 priced the past few years on Fanduel and DraftKings. So I do not mind a stack like this, especially if we look at what this game looks like on paper for Vegas. It's got a 46.5 over-under with Baltimore being an 8.5 point favorite. If they think it's going to be an 8.5 point favorite, someone's going to have to score. I think building this lineup with Jackson, Deontay Johnson, Cortland Sutton, and Mark Andrews could be a game winner for you. Still leaves you over 5,200 left around the way. So on top of this, if you want to see everything else, we do have an article, our weekly rankings articles out. I will link those in the description of this video as well. So that's the stack number 2 for the week. And our favorite stack this week, number 1 overall, it is Jalen Hurts and the Philadelphia Eagles versus the very bad Jacksonville Jaguars defense. So as we know, Jalen Hurts had a monster game last week. Monster game. 35.14 fantasy points, 236 yards through the air with a passing touchdown. He had 37 rushing yards, and he had 3 rushing touchdowns. The tush push is back. It's in full force. And he gets a great, juicy matchup against Jacksonville. Jacksonville ranks 31st out of 32 against the opposing quarterbacks. They give up an average of 23.9 fantasy points per game on DraftKings. Who are you going to throw it to? A.J. Brown. It is A.J. Brown, and it is not particularly close. So if you look at between A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith, you can see Brown is averaging 21.5 fantasy points per game. Devonta Smith is averaging 14.6. He's got 3 touchdowns on the year, had a touchdown last week. So if you want to pivot from Brown down to Smith, I am okay with that. You will save quite a bit of money. But I'm going to go with A.J. Brown in this situation. And then the third one, if I am stacking, going with Saquon Barkley, who is our number 1 running back in Week 9. If we look at this, Jacksonville, they rank 28th against the opposing running back, giving up an average of 27.4 fantasy points per game. Now, Barkley is expensive. He's got over 700 yards already. He is averaging 109.4 yards per game. 108 yards last week. The week before that, 176. No touchdown last week, okay, but still put up 15.1. Against his former team, 29.7. Did have a couple of down weeks, but he's got a fantastic matchup against Jacksonville, who, if we look at Jacksonville's defense according to our matchup tool, they've allowed 1 100-plus yard rushing game this year. They've allowed 3 passing touchdowns or receiving touchdowns to opposing running backs, giving up 400 yards to running backs that can catch the ball, such as Saquon Barkley. So I am putting Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, and A.J. Brown in my lineups when I build it out. So if you want to look at a bring back, so if we look at Jacksonville versus Philly, you see it's 45.5 over under, with Philly being a 7.5 point favorite currently. So if we bring it back with some sort of Jacksonville here, I'm not 100% sure what we're going to be doing with running backs. But wide receiver, Christian Kirk is out. Duvernay is on the IR. Okay, he's out. Gabe Davis, questionable. Limited participant Wednesday. Week 8 wasn't targeted. Week 7, 13 yards, 45 yards, 38. He has 2 touchdowns. Both came against Chicago. Other than that 21.4 fantasy point per game or fantasy point game, he has not done anything that would even be remotely fun to look at. So if we're looking at bringbacks, Jacksonville, Brian Thomas Jr. makes the most sense. He was a limited participant with a chest. So I believe he will play. And if we look at Philly here against the opposing wide receivers, they rank 17th, so pretty much right in the middle, giving up an average of 32.8 fantasy points per game. You can see that he is averaging 71.6 yards per game and 15.9 fantasy points per game. So he has been the number one target for Lawrence. So you look at Brian Thomas Jr., I am definitely getting him in there. That basically, though, so if you look at tight end, you got obviously Evan Ingram with tight ends here. And if we look at Philly against the tight end, they are ranked 3rd, giving up 7.8. So that's basically it. I think the only bring back that makes any sense, because Philly's defense against the running back, they rank 3rd against the running back. So they are not good against the wide receiver, but they rank 3rd against the running back and very good against the tight end. And I'm not looking at Trevor Lawrence for quarterback. This is the stack I would look at. Now, it is very expensive. So you can only average 38.6 the rest of the way. If you were to take all games, go to the defense here, and let's say we take a defense, you want to pay down, depends, I guess. You want to pay for a defense, possibly Commanders defense against a bad Daniel Jones. Now we're averaging 3,900. I'm okay with that. But if you want to swap out A.J. Brown for Devonta Smith, I am okay with that one as well. So we've gone from 3,975 to 4,300. So we've gotten about 400 more, and you can find value as well. So don't necessarily feel you need to do a bring back. So if you want to take Thomas out of there, you can still average 4,700 the rest of the way to build throughout here. Now, these are just some of the stacks that we like. They will be on our cheat sheet on the website. We will have more throughout the week. So make sure you go check out FantasyTeamAdvisors.com. All of the rankings will be down below. We've got everything under the NFL tab, from our Bacon Station to Volume Report, down to cheat sheet, down to chalks, and even prop bets for week 9. So if you want to see some free prop bets, you want to see some free core plays, those will be in the Discord down below. That is a completely free Discord. Check it out. Like this video. Subscribe if you have not already. And let's have some fun in week 9. Be on the lookout Friday or Saturday, for a complete main slate breakdown with lineup builds, brought to you by FantasyTeamAdvisors.com, using SaberSim's algorithm and optimizer. That's what I've got. Good luck today. And as always, let's bring home some bacon. Peace.